Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Local Sex Shop. My name is Mikaella, and I am your hostess. Today with me, I have a special guest who has been here before, and I got a very good feedback about our previous episode that we recorded together, which was about vaginismus. And we love her. We love to see her. She's an icon in this room. So she's again with us today to talk about more sexual problems because we had so much fun for the first one. So today with us, we have Maja to talk about ADHD and sexual health. Hi, Maja.
Thank you for welcoming me and for having me again. Not a lot has changed since the last time. Still a forensic and legal psychology student. Still doing some work with organization. Let's talk about sex. And lately I've been just trying to redirect myself into psychosexology. And we shall see how it goes from here on.
I think you're already doing great based on comments I'm getting. So today we're going to talk about ADHD and sexual health. And ADHD is something that we hear a lot about. Like, I feel like for some people, it's also a bit of a buzzword. For some people who look down on it as a diagnosis and they're like, oh, ADHD. Like, everyone has ADHD these days. However, it's not just a buzzword, and it means something. So before we get into the conversation and about all of the possible sexual health implications, I wanted to ask you a bit about what is ADHD in practice, like what does it mean, what are the symptoms, what's happening there, basically.
Okay, so ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And according to DSM-5, you have two symptom domains. One is inattention, and the other one is hyperactivity and impulsivity. And you have a bunch of symptoms that go with this. For example, for inattention, you have being forgetful, being disorganized with time and your activities. It seems like you're making like careless mistakes. And then with hyperactivity and impulsivity, it's a difficulty being still. It's also more pronounced in social difficulties. For example, children don't know what to do, like when to act on their impulses, which also makes them more likely to be rejected by their peers. However, when it comes to DSM-5 definition, the problem with it is that it was based on the research made on mostly school-age boys, but not so much in women. So now recent research has showed that ADHD presents itself differently according to gender. Again, there are new problems here because they do not take transsexuals and other genders into account here. So it's when I say women and men, I mean gender assigned by birth. So also when it comes to DSM-5, the symptoms that I talked about is mostly symptoms in children. However, symptoms can present themselves a bit different in adults. So if you have late diagnosis, you're going to be more familiar with that. For example, some problems in adults is difficulty finishing tasks. You can be more chaotic. You have difficulty, for example, being on time and just doing stuff you have to do. For example, work or university. With impulsivity is more outbursts of anger, having, for example, difficulty with finances, like impulsive buys because you're just chasing dopamine wherever you can find it. With hyperactivity is more inner restlessness, having constant stream of thoughts and so on.
But I assume it has to be in a very like pronounced level to then get a diagnosis, because those things like chasing dopamine by shopping, then like I don't have an ADHD diagnosis, but I'm like around exam season I'm running towards I'm like, I just need to give myself a little treat. And like, so that happens a lot. Like I also see it in myself. Or maybe I'm just going to diagnose myself with ADHD as this episode progresses. That is
Yeah,
also
it's a big combination of all the different things. And yeah, it's hard to recognize it within yourself, especially if you're a high masking adult. With this, I mean, you all your life you've been not showing your symptoms to others because you might not want to show how chaotic you actually are or how much difficulty you have with managing daily life. So a lot of times people don't even know it themselves they have it. It takes them a long time to recognize it within themselves.
Yeah, I get that. I think you mean also like when you are in an environment that tells you that you have to live life that way, you are scared to show that you are not behaving like other people. So that's where the masking comes in.
Yeah, especially in women, because they tend to internalize their symptoms, which can then show itself as depression or anxiety, but it's not that. It's just, it means that ADHD will have high comorbidity. Sorry. Can I start the sentence again?
Yes.
So with women, they internalize their symptoms, which is why they are marked as high masking. And there will be a lot of overlapping symptoms with depression and anxiety, which is why they often get misdiagnosed and will get the proper diagnosis very late onwards. Also, some symptoms unique to women is really lower self-esteem and more difficulties with peer relationships. And they also they will learn how to mimic others' behavior, so it's even harder to recognize it.
Okay. So, with all of those symptoms happening and all of that chaotic energy, I guess, in someone's head, because we also talk about sex here, and we're going to talk about the sexual, I guess, more sexual aspect of the life of someone with ADHD. How do those symptoms then impact someone's sexual life?
Some common things that people with ADHD say are having difficulty keeping attention, being easily distracted, not seem to listen to their partner or be present in the moment. And two symptoms that are more prominent in when it comes to sexual health problems are distraction and emotion regulation. So a person who has ADHD will not be able to regulate their emotions as well as others. So you can see this with outbursts of anger or outbursts of intense energy and then calming down, which is also what can happen when it comes to sex. And four main categories of problems that can appear are with sexual desire, arousal, orgasm, and even sexual pain in some cases.
Okay, so how does that translate in action, like during sexy time?
So with orgasm, for example, you can have reaching orgasm too quickly. This is more pronounced in men, for example, erectile dysfunction, so premature ejaculation. With women, it's more just trouble getting there, just trouble staying focused or trouble staying focused on the stimulation, so getting distracted and not being able to reach orgasm. For example, they will start thinking about their shopping list or the bills they haven't paid. So it's hard to get there, and with that, it can also become a big anxiety issue because you're constantly overwhelmed. Am I performing well? Do I need to do something different? And then, of course, you constantly get distracted. And also rejection sensitivity. It relates to also, am I doing this right? Should I be doing it differently? Do I does my partner like the way I look? So it's also a lot of different things altogether, which now if you think about it, of course it's gonna cause some problems. With when it comes to men and premature ejaculation, it's more with difficulty delaying gratification, which means they wanna get to the reward as soon as possible. Which, when it comes to sex, means difficulty pausing, slowing down, or modulating arousal, or just recognizes the symptoms that show, okay, I'm gonna get to orgasm now.
Okay. Okay. I guess I can see how then you get, because you said before, like getting addicted to the dopamine rush. So basically behaviors that are in and out of the bedroom that make you like, I want my brain to go ding 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 ding. You won.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing, it's just in the sexual context. So not a lot of changes.
Yeah. But how do you deal with those things then? What are some ways that you can, I guess, mediate the effect that your ADHD can have in your sexual life?
So the best thing would be cognitive behavioral treatment, of course, this tackles ADHD symptoms in general, of course, but it can also just help you specifically with low self-esteem or anxiety when it comes to sex. Some other things are, you need to reflect on yourself. Do I get overstimulated during sex? So do I have sensory overload? Do I get overstimulated by the sounds, by the smell, by the light? What bothers me, what I can change in this setting so I can stay more focused? Or do I have sensory underload, meaning I don't have enough sensations that could keep me in check? If you have that, for example, you can try sensory play. You can play with different things such as temperature, smell and taste, even impact play, texture play, or even you can play with sense of sight, meaning you can use blindfolds. Another thing I saw recommended was fantasy or mental stimulation. Fantasy, of course, to get your mind to be present and to be more stimulated and just be there in presence.
Yeah. Can you go back a bit to the things that you can do, all of the things that you were like play. So
Yeah.
what does it mean in practice, like when you do it?
Of course, with temperature play, you can, for example, use eye cubes in a partner play or even by yourself. By yourself also with sex toys, you can maybe freeze them or you can run them under hot water to engage the senses more. The same with taste and smell. You can do food play or use flavored loops. Of course, with that you have to be careful with allergies, but that's something also to figure on by yourself. With impact play, this is more, we are venturing into another topic, I think, but you have to be, of course, careful with consent. You can use spanking or hitting to bring the person especially back into the what's happening. Pay attention to me, basically.
You're spanking for mindfulness.
Yeah. With texture play, you can use feathers, furs. Again, you're trying to keep the person in check, to make them play with you, basically.
Okay, so yeah, so that kind of ventures into, if you have ADHD, I guess you are going to experiment to be able to maybe have something that's more satisfying to you. I guess it's not all, what I'm going to use quotes here, like vanilla sex, because those are very specific things that, like, not everyone is like, I'm going to have sex today, where are the ice cubes? Or I'm going to have sex today, please spank me until I can only think of that. So that makes me think, since we're like going kind of that way, does that mean that if you have ADHD, you also have higher chances to be kinky? Because like those are like stuff that is like, they are kinks. They are, yeah, it's like not the vanilla kind of flavor.
Yeah, I was really interested in that, so I tried to find some resources, specifically academic ones. I couldn't find anything, which just tells me we need more research on this topic. Hopefully, maybe this is gonna give an idea to a future researcher. However, when I went through the kink forums and just trying to research this, a common consensus is that yes, a lot of people that are in kink communities also are neurodivergent. So let's say community will say yes, research, we don't know yet.
Okay. But when you say neurodivergent, then it's not only ADHD, it's also other kind of neurodi... I always have difficulty with how to handle that word. Neurodiverse.
Yeah, it can also be autism or other things. I just specifically, with this episode, I wanted to focus on ADHD because I'm more familiar with this.
Okay. Are there specific roles that someone who has ADHD might assume during kinky play? So, for example, do they have higher chances of getting a dominant role, or do they have higher chances of being submissive during those kind of interactions?
Again, it's quite hard to say with certainty, but it depends a little bit on which signs are more prominent in your diagnosis. So, for example, if you are impulsive and hyperactive, it is more likely that you will be in a dominant role, because dominant role will give you active control. You can have, you are able to do quick decisions, and you're able to more intensely focus on the scene. For example, if you have more desire for structure or control, it can play either way. You can be submissive or dominant. In submission, you will be able to have more control in what's happening. There's more comfort in clear boundaries. And you don't always have to think, what do I need to do now? What's going to happen now? It's going to be in someone else's control, which can give you more comfort. The same is with if you have sensory overload and underload, it's more likely you will be in a submissive role.
Okay, and does that basically, from what I understand, to be in the submissive role, it would give you, well, it will relieve you from having to make choices, which I think is also another thing that if you have ADHD struggle with, like deciding, and it will help you. Basically, what I said before, like mindfulness through spanking, kind of that, by, I guess, letting someone else make different decisions about you.
Yeah, it would relieve you basically from overthinking. You don't have to think about every single step. You can be more comfortable in yourself. And it also, a lot of people have reported that their confidence has risen a little bit, because they're just not overwhelmed by immediate stream of thoughts all the time if they're in this kind of setting.
Yeah, well, I guess then you do what you're told. You don't have many options to choose from.
Yeah.
Okay, and dominant, I guess, similar, but from the other way around, that you, I guess, at that point, you have the like really deciding power to see what's going to happen. So there's not uncertainty.
It's also one of the I can say strengths of ADHD people is hyper focus when they want something. So if you're in a dominant role, it is more likely you will be hyper focused on the scene. Mm-hmm. It will make you more interested in it. It will just, it's gonna be a little bit of rush of dopamine as well, because this is happening, I want this. You will have all the control you want. So it can play both ways.
Okay. Do you have any, I don't know, maybe tips, or maybe like ideas if you are either if you're someone with ADHD or if you're someone who's engaging with someone with ADHD in a sexual or in a kinky way, like what kind of things should you keep in mind in those kind of interactions, either in a physical sense or like in a mental psychological sense, or like when you communicate with each other. Are there like specific things that you should keep in mind?
I mean, this is going to be a very basic advice, but communication will be key. So, even before anything happens, talk with the person. What do you have any things that overstimulate you? Do you have things you would like to engage in more? Also, watch out for the environment. So, is the light too harsh? Things like that. You really need to prepare yourself maybe a little bit more than with other people. Also, more checking in during the scene. Is the person still present, or are they thinking about their shopping list? And also, you need to think about and see how a person will respond to directions. Are they going to follow them easier, or is it a bit harder for them to submit? For example, if they're in a submissive role. So with this, you can also see, is this actually the right role for the person in front of me or not? Also the same with tease and denial. What kind of the reward is going to make the person with ADHD more engaged in the scene? And yeah, if you're seeing that the person is maybe a little bit too overstimulated, slow it down, maybe focus on just one thing, and so on.
Okay. Well, those things oftentimes I feel like it would be nice if there were just what we expect everyone to do, like to kind of look out towards like what kind of environment are you doing, to check in with people. Are you still on me? Are you still like with me? On me, I mean, they can be on you, but are you still with me? Are you still like enjoying this, or are you able to enjoy yourself doing this? And I think it's such a simple piece of advice, and it's also like that element of communicate and like pay attention to what's happening around you. Oftentimes when I see different kind of advice about different kinds of situations, no matter if you have ADHD or maybe you have another kind of like physical disability that you need to take care of while you're having sex, or if you're just a person without any kind of condition who wants to have sex. It's like this is like a standard piece of advice, but it can sound so difficult and even so revolutionary to people when they have sex, because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna have sex, but like, what are you gonna do? Oh, just the standard stuff. But what is the standard stuff?
Yeah, I think we often forget how important communication is.
Yeah.
Also, I think we just know maybe opening a little bit more. Also, you can see more stuff on Instagram, on TikTok. The conversation is opening a little bit more. And as I said before, we're just now looking at the symptoms of ADHD and how it shows itself in daily life, especially, yeah, as I said before, difference in the gender. So we are kind of on a path of discovery. Also, what I noticed when I was researching this is a lot of people will say, oh, I never talk to my therapist about the problems that I might experience in the bedroom. So what I would advise to people that are maybe dipping their toes in different stuff, read, check different books. Maybe if there is a possibility of you to go to a sex therapist, I know there are a lot of times that might be too expensive or not really in your area, so it's hard, but still try to research what are the options. If not, research other things, talk to your partner, try to be as open as possible, and see from there how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like I think you have your best chances to have like a successful session with someone that you both enjoy if first you go in there and you're like, I know myself and I know what I like and I like what I like. I know what I enjoy, which also makes me think masturbate. Just learn how what your body likes. So if you're listening to this, go masturbate. This is our advice. So do you have any other tips for us or any recommendations for people who might be interested in this and might not be very familiar with sex and ADHD and what goes on?
I would say if you perhaps have a partner with ADHD, or if you have ADHD, search for these things as I had to. What can be the problems, what I can look out for, what I can change. Try to find therapists, which one will work for you better. Also, one of the things I forgot to mention maybe is sensate focus. That might also be a really nice partner play, because instead of focusing on the orgasm and just getting to the goal, it's more like getting to know each other again. What does my partner enjoy? If you're not familiar with it, I would suggest to research it. I think it's a really great approach to rediscover yourself and your partner.
Kind of a tantric kind of method?
Yeah, it's you basically start with non-genital touching to see which part of the body, other parts of the body besides the genital, will stimulate your partner, and then you build it up from there on, and you basically stray away from the intercourse for a little bit until you're ready to get there.
That's a very good point. Disclosure, I discovered that when you say that, because there's body parts that are more sensitive than others. So I've discovered, for example, that for some, and this is a fact, that some people can get an orgasm just by having their nipples stimulated. And there's other people who feel nothing. So I think this is such a small detail that you wouldn't have thought. But when you're interacting with someone, it can really change how you have sex. Because I've seen people who are like, I touch them there and they go insane. And there's other people who are like, no. So yeah, that thing cannot be, it's not the genitals, but it can still, even if it's hard to conceptualize, give the same kind of pleasure. Yeah.
Exactly. I think we forget to focus on small things, especially because I feel like sex education, movies, porn, whatever you watch, it's all focused on the orgasm, the final goal. You need to get there. And then we forget that there's middle steps before this. Also, you don't have to reach orgasm necessarily for the intercourse or masturbation to be pleasurable.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's also one of the things I would point out to people.
Point. So, okay, with this nice message, do you have anything else to add?
Maybe for the people that are rediscovering themselves and think they maybe do have ADHD, I would recommend... I know the GPs here are not the best, so I would recommend maybe going to the ADHD Central website. They have a nice little sort of questionnaire that you can answer, where it can give you whether or not there is a suspicion you might have it. And from there on, you can go to your GP with this in hand already, being like, yeah, this showed me I might have symptoms. If you already have a diagnosis of ADHD and maybe have encountered these problems, again, very stupid advice, but just take it easy on yourself. A lot of times also I recognize it within myself, so I forget to give myself space to just exist. The symptoms are not your personality. Try to just take a step back, refocus on yourself, see what works best for you. Also, what helps for me, for example, is making my symptoms my strength. For example, I know that I can think out of the box, so I try to focus on this. Or I know that I can also sometimes multitask different things. So I'm like, okay, I'm still good at some things. It doesn't all have to be negative. But I know lately it's been frustrating probably for people with ADHD because I noticed that TikTok has made it a popular diagnosis, let's say, where everybody's gonna be claiming, oh, I have ADHD because I have one symptom. So I think the diagnosis itself is also getting like a bit of negative pronunciation. And it's hard for people who have ADHD hearing this all the time when they're like, okay, but I'm actually struggling with my symptoms with daily life, and you making one thing this big of a problem. So I think we're also, this is one side of the thing. The other side is people who maybe before didn't have access to these resources are now seeing, okay, but these might be the symptoms that I have that nobody talked about it yet. So it's a kind of a two-way street. On one side it's positive, on the other side it's negative.
Okay, good to know. I think the ADHD Centrum that you said thing is also interesting. I might check it out later. Thank you very much for everything that you shared with us and your perspective on it. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thank you for having me again and giving me the space.
Yeah, of course. I'm holding space for you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for everyone who listened to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. And I'll see you at the next one.